What's going on, everybody? It is that time again, the Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 212, on this Thursday, September the 25th, 2025. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy with you on a just shockingly newsy bye week.
And I don't even have my drink.
Oh, this show's all thrown off now. I don't know what's going on with this bye week. It's been very, very hectic. So we had the John Mateer news on Tuesday. We did the instant reaction show then, and today, just a huge recruiting day for Oklahoma. Two big commits this morning, including five-star Cooper Hackett. We will, of course, discuss both at length. We have some other recruiting updates on a trio of 2026 prospects that Collin wanted to get into. And part of the craziness doesn't really affect us, but it also kind of does. You might have heard Mike Gundy got fired this week. That affects Oklahoma in a number of ways, both on the recruiting side and maybe the coaching side. We will discuss on the program as well. It's been, like I said, a very newsy and busy bye week in the great state of Oklahoma this week. So we'll have a lot to get into here on a Thursday. Before we get started, a reminder, as always, you can subscribe to Sooners Illustrated at oklahoma.247sports.com. Use the promo code SoonersPod60, all one word if you're listening on pod, to get a 60% off a VIP membership for a year to Sooners Illustrated and the entire 24/7 Sports Network. No better time to jump in and be a part of the community. It was a crazy week, a lot to talk about. Talk to your fellow OU fans, talk to us, and of course, get all the VIP content and coverage all year long on Sooners Illustrated and the entire 24/7 Sports Network. All right, Collin, a lot to get to. I woke up this morning. I do a radio spot every Thursday morning at 8:15, so I usually get up, a little bit before then to kind of be awake, before I go on the radio. And all of a sudden, boom, I get tagged your tweet that Oklahoma has flipped Cooper Hackett, the 2027 five-star offensive tackle in-state from Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. Most OU fans who are even vaguely keeping up with recruiting are very well aware of Cooper Hackett. This is an elite prospect in the state of Oklahoma. He was committed to Texas Tech. He flipped to Oklahoma this morning. He was in town for the Michigan game. He was in town for the Auburn game. And look what winning big games in front of a great home crowd can do for you. Collin, how do they do it? I mean, this is obviously a huge win for Bill Bedenbaugh, and he got another one this morning as well that we'll get into in a minute. But this is a massive get. This was a guy that, again, OU fans that don't even really follow recruiting on like a day-to-day were aware of and knew how big of a player and a prospect this is. One of the best players in the state of Oklahoma, the top guy in his class in 2027. And Oklahoma managed to flip him away from Texas Tech. Huge get here, obviously, right, Collin, to get Cooper Hackett in as kind of the crown jewel of their 2027 class.
I mean, this is a almost monumental day on the recruiting trail for Oklahoma, and Cooper Hackett kind of feels like the peak of it.
Yep.
This is fascinating because, to backtrack here, he, over the summer, is rumored to be leaning towards Texas Tech. This is in the middle of the Red Raiders landing Felix Ojo. A lot of discussion surrounding the program about the money that Texas Tech is willing to spend. And almost immediately after shockingly pulling off the Felix Ojo commitment, Cooper Hackett, crystal balls went in almost right away out of that Ojo pledge. And it felt like, okay, this is the world now, right? But some time went on. We got into the season. And Josh, if you'll remember, we were talking about it on our board with our subscribers. Cooper Hackett takes a in-season visit at the start of the year to Arkansas. He is on a visit with the Razorbacks, and out of the blue, I want to say at about like 10 o'clock at night, while on that visit to Arkansas, he commits to Texas Tech. And it was almost fitting in a way how much chaos had somehow surrounded this process. But Cooper Hackett's recruitment certainly wasn't done there. Oklahoma was prepared to play the long game, and the Sooners certainly did. I think that obviously the number one turning point is getting Cooper Hackett in town for that Michigan game. I was talking about it with some folks this morning. I think a big reason why Cooper Hackett was willing to hear out Texas Tech was Oklahoma had a lot to prove on the field. And for OU, not only to get that meaningful win to have that type of environment created by the fans and the crowd. I mean, that doesn't go unnoticed by someone like Cooper Hackett. To simply get that win and have the offensive line play the way that they did, to have a 5-star true freshman starting at left tackle for the developmental process under Bill Beanbo to play out on the field against a really talented front seven for Michigan. Like, Cooper Hackett took notice of all this stuff and then some. And I think as time went on, the appeal of potentially playing closer to home, staying in state, being close to family, it all obviously kind of came together for Cooper Hackett in his mind. And then I think it really started to solidify, honestly, when he returned to Oklahoma while still committed to Texas Tech for OU's SEC opener against Auburn. He watched the Sooners win that one. It was another awesome environment created by the fans.
Yeah.
Cooper Hackett continued to hear plenty from the OU staff while watching yet another huge win for OU. And end all be all, Hackett ends up part of Oklahoma's class. It's as big of a get as there has been for OU over the past couple of cycles, because obviously you want to keep the number one player in your state, in a state like Oklahoma, home. But the fact that this guy is a consensus top 10 player in the country at a premium position like offensive tackle, and all the ceiling you could imagine for this guy. I mean, Cooper Hackett, Oklahoma getting him is right up there with the likes of a Bo Bentley, a Michael Fasusi. A huge day for OU, and also, understandably, a huge day for Cooper Hackett.
Yeah, this is our number 9 player in 2027. Number 9, period, total. It's the number 1 player in Oklahoma in Cooper Hackett. Like Collin said, at a premium position at offensive tackle. And you can see what that kind of addition can do for you already with what Michael Fasusi has done in the little bit of time he's been here. That's what Cooper Hackett is. And he's a guy that you will build this 27 class around. Just a massive get. And, it was, I think it was kind of a double-edged sword a little bit of whenever he committed to Texas Tech, that was a gut punch for a lot of fans. Like, oh my God. But there was also that belief, like, it ain't over. There's a lot of time. He's just a junior in high school now. And sure enough, not even that much later here, Oklahoma was able to flip him around. And obviously you got a long time until he signs next December. But I mean, just a huge, huge, huge piece to put at the top of that class in 27, and very attractive for quarterbacks. Obviously, we talked about before the miss on Peyton Houston. They're chasing some other guys, having an offensive line group. We're going to get this another one they picked up this morning. I mean, that's got to be very attractive, I would think, to any quarterbacks you're chasing as well in 27. I mean, so a lot to like.
I saw Bo Bentley celebrating this morning. His Instagram story was full of, hey, oh, look at this. And understandably so. 2 questions I'm sure Oklahoma fans will have that I wanted to address quickly. Number 1, is it done now, or is there more to go? With a flip happening, kind of like you mentioned, there's still a ways away until December of the early signing period for the 27 cycle. Yeah, I am told that Cooper Hackett is planning to shut things down. I am told that he and his family have agreed that this is over, that he will not be entertaining other schools. And at least for the time being, this guy is firmly committed to Oklahoma, and he made this significant flip for a reason. And then I think the second thing that Oklahoma fans will ask, especially fans who don't necessarily keep up with recruiting but want to know, okay, 5-star offensive tackle, can this guy help us right away? Is this another Fasusi? And to that, I would say quickly, I think that's honestly why Oklahoma, and specifically Bill Beanbo, was able to get this one done. Bill Beanbo, you mentioned, have himself a day. I mean, what an incredible get for him to pull this flip off. But I think a big reason why Cooper Hackett ended up committing to Oklahoma today is because, on top of everything we just talked about, I think Cooper Hackett is very self-aware. I think he is very understanding of the developmental timeline that's ahead of him. Yeah. I think he understands the weight that he has to put on, the skill set he has to shape, and honestly, the profile he needs to put together in order to be the elite offensive tackle he's capable of being. Well, I don't know that happens day one in Norman. I wouldn't tell you that this is someone who has an immediate shot to be a day one starter at offensive tackle, but that's okay, because that's why Cooper Hackett was so enticed by the opportunity of playing for Bill Beanbo. His ultimate goal is to be an impact player at Oklahoma and go play in the NFL. And Cooper Hackett feels like Bill Bedenbaugh gives him the best ability to evolve, to develop, and turn into yet another elite offensive tackle in an OU uniform. I would tell you, be patient with this guy. OU was patient with him, and they will continue to do so. But, man, Bill Bedenbaugh got this guy, and I think in a few years from now, we're going to be talking about how he may not have seen it day one in Norman, but, man, how big was that for Cooper Hackett to go ahead and commit to Oklahoma? I think that the developmental timeline for him is going to be fascinating to watch at OU.
No doubt. As we teased, that wasn't it for Bill Bedenbaugh this morning. Not 30 minutes, maybe less. I can't remember the exact timing of everything. After Cooper Hackett jumps in, they went and did it again. Kaeden Penny jumped in. High 4-star offensive line prospect. Again, in-state up there in Bixby, which is the premier program in the state of Oklahoma right now. Just completely a buzzsaw machine, dominating teams every single weekend, winning state titles every single year. Kaeden Penny committed to Oklahoma shortly thereafter, won Cooper Hackett. Mentioned Cooper Hackett, the number 9 player in the class in 2027. Kaeden Penny is the composite number 45 player in the class. So you got 2 top 50 guys in the composite here within a half hour of each other. And they're both in the same, positional unit and all along the offensive line. What a morning for Bill Bedenbaugh, Collin. Kaeden Penny is another guy that we talked about, a handful of times. Another high-end guy in state. I mean, sheesh. To go with Cooper Hackett and Luke Wilson, who's been committed obviously as well on that. I mean, what a group already for Bill Bedenbaugh. Talk about the addition of Penny here, because again, Hackett's going to get the headlines, but Penny, man, is another really high-end player that Bill Bedenbaugh was able to get into the boat this morning.
I mean, this is the number 2 guard in the country for us at 24/7 Sports. Top 2 interior offensive linemen in America at 24/7. That's a big deal, man. And he's a number 2 player in the state of Oklahoma, right behind Cooper Hackett. Again, locking down your top players within state lines at a state like Oklahoma, and especially along the offensive line, that position group. You just can't lose elite players there to other programs. And you mentioned it, Bill Bedenbaugh did his thing here as well. I give a ton of credit to the Oklahoma front office for putting pedal to the metal here and getting this one done. It sounds like this one really wasn't even finalized until very late last night.
Yeah.
And then caught a lot of people by surprise early this morning. I mean, it was a matter of minutes, literally, after Cooper Hackett. And I think Kaeden Penny is very big in terms of the importance, arguably just as big of a get for OU in terms of having someone to complement Cooper Hackett and getting, honestly, 2 guys that will lay the foundation of frontline success at Oklahoma for years to come. OU beats out Ohio State and Texas A&M here. I mean, Penny was nationally coveted. He had been looking elsewhere at times, but he was another that was there for the Michigan game. He was there for the Auburn game. He hung out with Cooper Hackett in both instances. You have to feel like that played a role as well in Kaeden Penny choosing to commit a matter of moments after Hackett. I mean, it's just a heck of a partnership for the offensive line coming together in the same day and basically in the same hour. And for OU, I mean, this is a day to celebrate. Kaeden Penny is a monster offensive lineman. He is a highly athletic, physical, aggressive, yet in control, big body who knows what to do and knows how to do it, even if his opponent doesn't want that to happen. You never take for granted getting somebody like this, not only the talent, but the mindset. And on top of that, man, for Oklahoma to finally break that Bixby barrier, which has been existent for years. Yet another commitment here, Josh, where there's just a ton of meaning behind it.
Just feels like, and I think we've talked about this in the past, even before this, Hackett and Penny, but, for a stretch there in 17, 18, that range, we all got spoiled because Oklahoma had Joe Moore Award level offensive line play, tons of guys in the NFL now. And, they've fallen off that a little bit the last few years, still putting a lot of guys in the NFL, but not quite that level. But it felt like they're getting close to being back to that. We talk about guys right now like Fasusi and the year 2 guys, Daniel Locke and Kunmi, and like just that kind of that wave of guys coming up. 2026, you got DK Schmidt and Noah Bass, and now you got this group in 27. It's like, man, Bill Beanbo he's kind of got it cooking a little bit. So a lot to be excited about with Hackett and Penny both jumping in. It's super mega uber early. I want to emphasize that. But as of right now, Oklahoma has the number 3 class in 2027. Again, colossally early. They have 4 guys, but it just kind of shows you the level of the group that they have right now. And again, repeat, mega early, but still, it goes to show you kind of what this group of guys that they have together right now with the 3 linemen and then Damari DeZern. Quite a group to start that 27 cycle and kind of be in position to have a really, really high class whenever we get around to it, this time next year. Shifting from 2027 back to 2026, because there's still some meat on the bone in the current cycle. Have a few guys we want to touch on here that we've brought up on the show in the past that are all kind of getting interesting. Let's start kind of keeping up the trend of in-state offensive linemen. Let's start with Daniel McMorris, the Norman North product that was in town. Was he in town for the Michigan game? Was it, Collin, that we thought he might get an invite or an offer coming out of that? And he didn't right away, but he did earlier this week. Where do things kind of stand with him, the Norman North offensive tackle, as probably or potentially being a late addition? I know this is one that just you and I talking off air is one that you think could come to a resolution pretty soon.
Yeah, but that's also, speaking of the news of the day, what's fascinating here is we know what it means for a Norman native and a Norman North product to get the offer from Oklahoma. I mean, this guy is playing his ball in the shadows of the Palace on the Prairie. Texas Tech is involved. Northwestern is involved. Cal is involved. I want to say Tulsa, off the heels of that big win over Oklahoma State, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, is also trying to make a push for Daniel McMorris. This is a high 3-star, 89 player grade, the highest level 3-star you can get. Yeah. Tons of developmental upside. I think for me now, speaking of the news of the day, I felt like almost immediately out of the aftermath of the offer, Oklahoma was going to try to find a way to get this one done. Daniel McMorris felt like a candidate to go ahead and commit early. But now with Cooper Hackett in the mix in 2027, Caden Penny, Luke Wilson, obviously you have a guy like Michael Fasusi at left tackle who's going to be there for at least the next 2 years.
Right.
I guess now what I'm curious about, and I'm going to continue to dig on for the remainder of the day and the week, what is Daniel McMorris' perception of not just the dream offer in Oklahoma, but the setup with the Sooners, especially in that offensive tackle room? Because McMorris is someone who will need some time to cook. He's going to have to be in the crock pot for a little bit. OU's bringing in some elite talents in 2027 who honestly need to do the same. And then you have a cornerstone left tackle in Fasusi who's going to be there for the foreseeable future. All that aside, out of the Oklahoma offer, it was made very clear to me Daniel McMorris has wanted this one bad. I mean, bad. This is something that he's worked towards. I've been told that there have been a number of people in the state of Oklahoma. There are OU alumni who are calling and had been trying to get McMorris this offer. And it was kind of a collective effort. I mean, it was the group's work to get McMorris and the offer done. And obviously a testament to what he's put on tape to this point. You know, they brought him in for that visit and they got updated measurements and specs on him, which was going to be key in terms of pulling the trigger with a scholarship. And so now I think Oklahoma is all for taking McMorris. I am of the belief currently he is the Sooners' highest priority at offensive tackle to date, at least in 2026.
Yeah.
Now for McMorris, especially after getting that offer, but then seeing kind of everything that's gone on, it'll be up to him to decide what he feels fits him best for both his head and his heart. I'm very interested to see how this goes. I think McMorris and Oklahoma are kind of in the same boat with me. Feels like this one could evolve over the next few days off the heels of the news of the day, but regardless, very cool to see a Norman North guy get the offer from OU.
Yeah, no doubt. And, the timeline of it was because I think coming out of the Michigan weekend when that offer didn't happen, at least I was kind of thinking, well, I guess that's not a thing, and so
Yeah.
to kind of stick with it and get it a little bit later, and we'll see what happens. But good for him, obviously a Norman kid, and we'll see what happens there, and we'll obviously let you know over Sooners Illustrated. Sticking on 2026 and on offense, Braden Allen, the Tulane commit wide receiver from Lafayette, Louisiana. He was in town for the Auburn game. We talked about him going into the weekend. This is a guy that, Oklahoma, you have Daniel Odom and you have Xavier Okafulaweze in 2026. You have a pair of receivers there. If you could loop in Allen, nice little trio for Emmett Jones. Or anything that's kind of stand with him, Collin, after he was in town for the Auburn game. How did things go? And what do you think is Oklahoma's chances to maybe flip him away from the green wave?
I think he had a blast. I think that Oklahoma kind of put on display to the 3-star Tulane commit an opportunity to play in the SEC, to be part of games like Oklahoma-Auburn, to play within this offense and some of the plays that the receivers made on Saturday, Isaiah Satania most notably.
Yeah.
I mean, Braden Allen got to see a lot. I was also told that he got to spend a good amount of time with the staff, got to check out Norman for a little bit. The OV went about as well as you could ask. That being said, what's interesting is he's still going to take his official visit with Colorado. That will happen this weekend. I believe the Buffs, I can't remember who they play, but if you could spot me on that, I'd be curious to know who the matchup is for the Buffs this weekend while Braden Allen is in town. But on the same token, Braden Allen is very interested in Oklahoma. He's continuing to explore options. Not only is he taking the OV to Colorado, he's still committed to Tulane. And Tulane is going to be playing at Tulsa this weekend. I'll be at that game, by the way, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Tulane's fighting hard. I have heard that there is a lot of intrigue as far as what Colorado can accomplish here. You got who they're playing this weekend?
BYU at home. So a ranked team coming in there.
So facing a ranked foe.
Night game.
I'm sure that place in Boulder is going to be rocking.
Yeah, night game.
Dion is going to have the crowd going. And I have been told that a lot of people on the recruiting trail are curious to see what Braden Allen thinks coming out of this weekend's visit in Boulder, because it sets up for the Buffs to potentially win out in this recruitment. Now, Oklahoma isn't giving up. What I did find interesting, I don't have an in-depth update, so I didn't want to stack him onto this already loaded pod, but OU recently sent out another 2026 wide receiver offer, Mylan Paris, the high 4-star Iowa State commit, big-bodied, jumbo wideout type. I don't know that it necessarily impacts Braden Allen's situation a ton. I don't think it's reflective of OU's feelings of Braden Allen either. I also, basically, I don't think that either correlate, but I also think that Oklahoma is prepared for a pivot if Braden Allen doesn't decide to commit to the Sooners. But we're going to learn a lot out of this weekend. The OV to Colorado is huge. Tulane and Oklahoma holding their breath. Colorado hoping it's in closing territory. And the Braden Allen saga kind of continues here.
Last one, we'll go over to defense. Guy we've talked about a few times. Jacob Curry, the Florida safety / linebacker hybrid target. Like Allen, he was in town for the Auburn game last weekend. We talked about it a little bit going in, Collin. It feels like he's a perfect Brent Venables guy. He's such a weird recruitment because he was Northwestern, and then he just blew up with all these big programs all of a sudden kind of chasing him. Oklahoma was kind of ahead of the curve on that. For you with Curry, I mean, what makes sense here for Oklahoma? What's possible? Because it feels like this is a pretty natural partnership if that's the way it goes. But like I just kind of referenced, Oklahoma's battling some other big-name programs that are kind of after him a little bit here. Where does things stand with Curry after he was in town for Auburn?
So a lot to like in terms of what OU accomplished here. I think that Jacob Curry is very high on the Sooners. I think you could argue that Oklahoma holds the lead out of the visit, but he's another who's going to continue to take visits. I think that as of right now, he is scheduled for an unofficial visit to Ohio State. The Buckeyes play Minnesota the weekend of October the 4th. he's set to be in attendance for that game. I know that Baylor is really trying to book an OV with Curry. I think that the Bears would love to get a full weekend with this guy and kind of put on display what they can offer under Dave Aranda within that defensive system and then playing in the Big 12. Obviously, the Buckeyes are formidable. I mean, I don't think that he has an OV set up yet with Ohio State, but the unofficial trip to Ohio State easily could be enough with what we know about Columbus and seeing a game in the shoe. But I think that Oklahoma really positioned itself well. I think that OU, I mean, the way that defense and that linebacker core played against Auburn during his OV, hard to ask for much more. And I just think we continue to reiterate, this is like a Brent Venables guy. This is an ideal OU fit. I think that was made well known to him, and I think that the Sooners are on his mind as he continues to explore options.
Going to be a fun one to keep up with as we continue to navigate Oklahoma, trying to get maybe some late additions there in 2026 with signing day coming up in December. One more recruiter thing I want to get into, and then we'll talk about our guy Ben Arbuckle a little bit on the back end. I mentioned earlier, obviously every OU fan very well aware, on Tuesday, Oklahoma State fired Mike Gundy, which is crazy. I mean, he's been there for 2 decades, really the only OSU coach that really I know as being the guy out there in Stillwater. Been a long time since it wasn't Mike Gundy running the show. Collin, obviously in-state, when you have a massive coaching change like that, I'm curious for you, the recruiting potential impact here, because there's a number of in-state guys that Oklahoma was in on that landed with the Pokes. Obviously, we've already seen Kaeden Jones, who's an Oklahoma legacy, decommitted from Oklahoma State earlier this week. You also have guys like Braden Presley, Taj Overton, among some others there. I just kind of open board here for you. Is there any possibility of Oklahoma circling back on any of these guys? Obviously, again, Kaeden Jones is already decommitted. The other guys are still in for now. Does Mike Gundy's firing open things back up for Oklahoma on any of these OSU commits in 2026?
So the short answer in order would be yes, maybe no. I think that you start with Kaeden Jones, now officially decommitted.
Right.
I do believe that Oklahoma is at least going to hover here and see what the deal might be. I'm scheduled to go see Kaeden Jones and Jenks play tomorrow night. I am fascinated to see if we're able to sit down and talk what the latest is there, because as of right now, the belief that I've gathered is that not only will Oklahoma potentially be involved here, it sounds like a lot of schools who are originally involved in Jones' recruitment previously, they may not necessarily be preparing themselves to be all that involved moving forward, because a lot of these programs have found their guys at running back, right? And the natural turning of the page in the recruiting process, you've got to figure out who you're going to have in the class. I think Kaeden Jones now back on the open market might be exploring some newer options compared to maybe some of the contenders of old when he was uncommitted and then eventually ended up with Oklahoma State. Braden Presley is the maybe for me. I don't think that there's necessarily any haste to get involved here on Oklahoma's end.
Sure.
I could easily see time going on and OU not getting involved at all. I could also see the Sooners being like, let's bring him in for a visit. Let's see what's going on here. And I think obviously the not only pledge status for Presley, I mean, he's still committed to Oklahoma State, but I also think the continuation of the season, what he's putting on tape, how Oklahoma feels about its secondary haul in the class, all of that is still being worked through. So as of right now, Braden Presley is kind of a maybe, maybe not. And then Taj Overton, I do not expect Oklahoma to kick the tires on as of right now. I think once Overton made his decision to go to Oklahoma State, I think OU at that time wasn't necessarily pressing all that hard. And then Oklahoma State really prioritized Overton, and the Sooners were ready to turn the page. I think OU's moved on from Overton, might be evaluating Presley, but Jones is kind of the one to watch right now out of Oklahoma State's class.
Will be interesting to see kind of the ripple effects there. You've already seen Oklahoma State lose some other guys, obviously in their class. Our guy McLean has his work cut out for him this week. It's been quite a week in Stillwater with a major shakeup there with Mike Gundy being fired after, like I said, about 2 decades as the head coach of the Pokes. So obviously there's the recruiting angle of it, and then there's the other side of the equation here and how this affects Oklahoma. And that really, no matter where you look, Ben Arbuckle is considered, on the betting lines at least, one of the 4 or 5 top favorites to potentially take the job as the new head coach at Oklahoma State. He's, on all the hot boards and things, if you will, if you want to do that sort of thing. Collin, where do you stand with this being a thing that Oklahoma should worry about? Oklahoma fans should worry about. Ben Arbuckle, he's been here for 4 games, but obviously has a very high approval rating. Took over an offense that was garbage and has made it good. Domitier was leading the Heisman race before he had the thumb injury earlier, last weekend against Auburn. For you, I mean, just where do you stand on this? Whether it's talking to people or just your gut feel on, is Ben Arbuckle a legitimate candidate for this job? And would he, obviously Oklahoma State wanting him is one thing, Ben Arbuckle wanting to do it is another. Where do you think this all kind of sits, and how much Oklahoma fans kind of, be worried about this possibly being a thing, that they could lose Ben Arbuckle after 1 year to go in-state up to Stillwater and take over as the new head coach?
So my mind goes here first. Look, no matter how you feel or where your associations lie, you should want good people who are good at their jobs to get great opportunities. And if Ben Arbuckle and his wife see this opportunity as a fit for them in their future, then you should be thrilled for them if they do end up pursuing it and then ultimately getting it. But on the flip side, I think if you're Oklahoma, or at least an Oklahoma fan, you got to look at this and kind of go, Ben Arbuckle's in the top 3 to 5 of betting odds? Good, because at least not only Vegas doesn't necessarily perceive him to be the outright favorite, which gives you a little bit of solace if you're an OU fan, right? But also, I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, you really have to like the prospects of potentially getting this guy a raise and a contract extension. We know how this goes.
Sure.
When major vacancies, notable vacancies are created in college football, what happens? A lot of coaches rumored to be in position for it. If they don't end up getting it or taking it, they usually get a contract extension and a raise. And you would think that Oklahoma has seen enough from Ben Arbuckle through the first 4 games of the year to go ahead and get that done. Now, is this the domino that needed to fall to potentially accelerate that timeline? I don't know. I don't think that we'll know for a little bit, but I think this could actually end up being pretty good for Oklahoma. Either way, Ben Arbuckle is set up to find great personal success. On the tail end here, I think that Ben Arbuckle should rightfully at least explore this if he sees a fit. I mean, this is a guy from the state of Texas. He's an offensive-minded, younger head coach. He's kind of everything that, from what we've heard to this point, Oklahoma State is looking for. I believe he'll be in the candidate pool. I believe that Oklahoma State will at least vet him for the position. We'll see what comes from it. But as of right now, Josh, and I don't know where you stand, I think that Oklahoma State is ultimately going to end up going with one of a G.J. Kinney, who makes a ton of sense in my opinion.
He's probably the favorite, yeah.
And I have already kind of heard that G.J. Kinney will be in the mix, if you know what I mean. Zach Robinson, former Oklahoma State Cowboy quarterback, who is the current offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. You're a Falcons guy. I would love to know how you feel about this.
Yeah.
He's rumored to be in the position as well. And there's a litany of others. I was thinking about it the other day. Oklahoma State is really set up to have one heck of a candidate pool. I think this is an incredibly attractive job. I think there are going to be a ton of qualified head coaches and coordinators who are going to throw their hat in the ring for it. And because of that, it's going to make the picture a little bit murky, a little bit cloudy. Sure. Where Ben Arbuckle exactly stands, couldn't tell you yet. It's very early. I think he'll be in the mix, but I also think Oklahoma State just has so many other options in mind, and I could see them going any number of different directions.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think it's an attractive job. They need to kind of get their alignment a little better in order. It doesn't help things, or at least makes things weird, the fact that they don't really have an AD right now. Chad Weiberg is operating as the AD without a contract. Like they need a new athletic director also. So you always kind of want your athletic director and your head coach to kind of be lock in step. And I don't really know how they're going to be able to pull that off unless they can figure that out, kind of quickly, frankly, over the next couple of months. You got something you want to add?
I was wondering, so apparently Weiberg is getting a contract extension. Did you see this? I saw one report and never followed it.
It's a weird situation. I don't really even understand. I don't really even get it. So maybe he's going to be around.
Yeah, which is also fascinating. Reportedly, he's going to receive a 4-year contract, and that came out almost immediately after the firing of Mike Gundy.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I hadn't seen that. So that makes things a little easier because that's the really thing with Oklahoma State. It felt like they haven't been in line. Like Mike Gundy, Weiberg, administration, like it feels like they haven't had that alignment that you always hear coaches talk about that you need to win at a high level.
I mean, it's a little shady, it's a little weird that Mike Gundy gets fired and then the athletic director immediately gets a 4-year contract after a massive decision like that, kind of speaking to the alignment issues you're talking about,
Sure. So, but I that all said, I do think it's still an attractive job. There's no reason Oklahoma State can't be one of, if not the premier program in the Big 12, right, for a long time. And we all thought they were set up to be that when Oklahoma and Texas left. The timing for Zach Robinson is funny because they just had the worst game probably of his career of a coaching perspective. They got shut out by the Panthers on Saturday. And he's kind of getting ripped apart on all the NFL talk shows this week for various things. But I do think he's a very possible candidate. GJ Keating be a great hire. For Ben Arbuckle, I do think for him, it kind of does make sense, which is the scary thing for OU because he's a guy from the area. Like, it's an attractive job. Like, I do think that that's a spot that I could see he and his family kind of putting roots in for a while. And so I do see why that can make sense. Now, the flip side of that is if you're the OC at Oklahoma for 2-3 years and you win and you produce, you will get a big job. You will. I mean, you'll get an SEC job if you want that. Like, he can get bigger jobs. And Oklahoma State's got a lot of work to do. That roster is nowhere near ready to compete right now, right? So it's kind of a little bit of both. Like, it's a good job. I could see why he would want it, but if he holds out, he could almost certainly get a better one. So, I think if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're not worried too much. But, frankly, after last year where I didn't see any way Zach Alley would leave for West Virginia, and he did, that was for a DC job, not a head coaching job. Like, it's you kind of can't really ever rule out anything, frankly, at this point. And so I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't freak out if you're an OU fan, but I wouldn't rule it out either. I do think it is possible. It's possible.
I mean, it's interesting because Zach Alley, obviously a big reason why he left was, number one, the opportunity to work with Rich Rod again at a Power 4 job.
Sure.
And then also, let's just call it what it is, likely getting out of the shadows of
run the show. Yeah.
Exactly that. Run his show. Well, Ben Arbuckle is basically the head coach of Oklahoma's offense. I mean, 100%. He's calling the shots. He's got Kevin Wilson working, lockstep with him and being in a supporting role, almost like the associate head coach of the offense. I mean, Arbuckle has basically a head coaching gig just for the offensive side of the ball for an elite Power 4 program. I think that's what it kind of comes down to is, do you value potentially a contract extension and you would assume a large, significant pay raise at OU? I mean, this guy would probably be making some head coaches' salaries, right? But then also, like, where does the Oklahoma State job help you out? Because not only do they have to do a roster overhaul, like you're mentioning, the money stuff has to get figured out, not only getting donors back involved after all the tension with Gundy. There's going to be a lot of sales going on, but also, I mean, the buyout that they're going to pay to Gundy doesn't go away. How does that impact the offer that Oklahoma State is willing to extend to someone in the candidate pool. I don't know the answers to all these questions, but it's stuff to think about. And I think at the very least, if you're OU, if you're a fan looking for some reassurance, you can at least take all of this into consideration.
Let me ask you this, and this is a little bit unfair question because it's a lot of speculation here.
Awesome.
We're podcasting, so that's what we do here.
Yeah.
How confident are you that Ben Arbuckle will be back next year, period? Like, remove the Oklahoma State part of it. Like, again, that's where the unfair part comes in, because we're talking about jobs that are not open. So we're trying to predict jobs that we don't know what he's going to be a candidate for. But, I mean, just your feeling there. Like, is this a one and done thing? Does it really just come down to the level of job? Like, because I think that's a question a lot of OU fans are wondering, like, is Ben Arbuckle is great. I think everyone likes him. He's doing a good job, but could he be gone in a year and Oklahoma's right back in the same boat? I mean, I think that's certainly on the table, right? I mean, it probably depends on the opening, but for you, I mean, even beyond Oklahoma State, like, could he just be gone for 1 year because he's doing too good of a job? I think that's possible, right?
I don't think you can rule it out. I think that, to your question, my confidence level, I was probably at about a 70 percentile before the Oklahoma State gig came open, because you look at the national landscape, I don't think places like UCLA or Virginia Tech make a ton of sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Oklahoma State makes more sense than those.
Exactly. And then Oklahoma State becomes available and you go, it's hard to deny that fit a little bit, right? But I think that the trickle-down effect, too, kind of has to be taken into consideration, right? I mean, one coach takes this job, suddenly another becomes available. I was talking about it with a couple of Power 4 coaches and personnel directors the other day. Like, we were just working through, all right, if this person takes this job, who would then go to this job? And that's where I think Ben Arbuckle really becomes a threat to leave, right? Because there, in theory, would be some jobs, even in the region, that, I mean, you'd be hard-pressed not to take some of these opportunities if they were to become available, right? And so, look, right now, if you're forcing me to put a number on it, and I don't know if you want to play the same game, but
you don't have
I might be now at like a 60, maybe in that ballpark, because on one hand, I think there's a lot of appeal to staying in a stable and attractive situation with job security, a increase in pay. And after all, I mean, Ben Arbuckle's first date with his wife was the Oklahoma Notre Dame game. I mean, this place does mean something to them, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But as much of a challenge as Oklahoma State might be, it's still Oklahoma State. Like, it's still not only a really solid job, I mean, it could arguably be a much better job with the way some newness can spark change. So
sure,
I'm probably at like a 60 now, but the more jobs that become available, it'd be hard for me to not buy into the theory he'd be looking at head coaching opportunities elsewhere.
No, I mean, there's a lot of factors. I would lean that he's going to be back as well, but I'm not like massively confident in it. There's a lot of factors we don't know. Like, is John Mateer going to be back next year? That's a big question. I would think that if Mateer was leaning toward being back, playing another year, that would be a big difference for leaning toward Ben to want to stay at Oklahoma another season. I would think, right? To make another run at it with those two guys who have been close and kind of been tied at the hip in the last several years. So that's a big question. What jobs are actually open? I would think that it's probably a little too early to think he'd be in on like a Florida or something. But, like you kind of were saying earlier, the ripple effects, like, what if Lane Kiffin goes to Florida? Ole Miss seems a little more attainable. Like, you kind of start to play that game and it can get kind of interesting. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it's going to depend, obviously, on what kind of season they have. I mean, does Oklahoma make the playoff this year? Like, does John Mateer still get to New York even with missing the games? Like, these are things that are hard to know. Again, I would think it's a little early for Ben to be considered for a job like a Florida, one of those big jobs that might come open. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe not. If they have a year that they're potentially capable of having, maybe not. So it'll be interesting. It'll be something we'll talk about. I'm certain. His name will be thrown around a lot for a lot of these openings. There's no doubt about that. We'll see.
It's hilarious you bring up Mateer. Mateer has surgery. Annual opponents come out, and we have, a loaded show still in a bye week.
I know.
What a week from hell, man. Honestly,
quite a week. Do you have a gut feel on Mike Gundy? By the way, I have to assume that Mike Gundy is going to still coach. And I saw Kale said he would like to open wherever they go. I have no clue where he's going to wind up, but I would think that Mike Gundy is going to keep coaching somewhere.
I was about to say, speaking of news of the week, former Oklahoma assistant Cale Gundy says he's going with Mike wherever he goes. I return to the coaching sphere for Cale, and Mike's going somewhere. I mean, we knew that was going to be the deal.
Arkansas? If Arkansas opens?
I thought about it.
That could be fun. That could be fun. I wouldn't mind seeing Mike Gundy at a SEC Media Days. I would love to park myself over at the Oklahoma State station at Boots on Media Days in the past, because Mike Gundy is it's a different breed, man. It's a different breed.
How interesting would it be if Gundy and Arbuckle are sitting in line waiting to interview for the Arkansas job at the same time?
That's another one that we didn't bring up before, that if it comes open, which I think it probably will, again, in the area, SEC, that's one that I do think Ben could be a candidate for right away. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, they hired Pittman, who was a offensive line assistant coach by trade, and he wasn't necessarily like the young hot play caller. And now it's like, well, you kind of need to go hire that guy for your fan base to buy in these days, And Arkansas would make a lot of sense, just like Oklahoma State. But Gundy would be awesome there. What I think I really want now is for Gundy to take like a G5 job and just turn that place into a juggernaut. Like, how awesome would it be, honestly, if like Trey Lamb at Tulsa gets a new job and then Gundy stays in the state of Oklahoma and turns Tulsa.
Maybe they'll just swap. Maybe Trey Lamb will take the Oklahoma State job and then Gundy can take over at Tulsa. Do kind of what Dan Mullen's doing at UNLV right now. I'm into it.
So I looked this up too. I believe like one of, if not the only place that Gundy has coached outside of Oklahoma State was Maryland. And I was like, how awesome would it be to Gundy in the DMV? Does that even make I don't even know how he got that job.
Nash, yeah. But I like it. It's gonna be fun. The coaching carousel already ablaze. Some big jobs open, and maybe some more to come. There's a lot of talk about like Wisconsin, Florida. We mentioned Arkansas. We mentioned. It's going to be kind of a crazy year. It seems like, but we'll find out. And Ben Arbuckle's name, like we said, probably going to get thrown around for a lot of these jobs, and that's kind of the nature of it. When you're an offensive coordinator at a place like Oklahoma and you're having success, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. So we'll see, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more as it becomes relevant over the course of the year, and certainly into the into December and the early part of the offseason when some of these hires start to get made. It'll be a conversation point, no doubt about that. I think that's it. Been a crazy week. Programming note I mentioned on, I think the Monday show, I might have mentioned on the Material Instant Reaction, we're supposed to talk to Brent Venables and players on Wednesday. They moved it to Thursday today. They even moved it up in the day. It doesn't really affect anybody tuned in, but we're going to hear from Brent Venables and players today. I don't know what players yet, but keep an eye out for that on the YouTube channel. If you're watching the pod right now, right here, make sure to subscribe, turn notifications on so you can know when a new video gets put up, because we're going to hear from Venables and the team today. Obviously, there'll be a lot of material talk, I'm sure, a lot of bye week talk, and so we'll do that. We'll get all ready for next week, but we'll circle back next Monday. Tom, James, and myself look ahead to the second phase of the season. And Collin and I will circle back with you next Thursday to hit on the latest on the recruiting side. Some of these 2026 guys maybe have a decision by then. We'll get into it next week as we start to shift into October next week, if you can believe it. So I think that's it for now. For Collin Kennedy, I'm Josh Callaway signing off. We'll see you next time right back here as always on Sooners Illustrated.